Good morning, Professor Dorcas. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
I'm pleased to have accepted our invitation for today. So we will basically want you to introduce yourself to our listeners. So once again, I know that you are here for the first edition.
Yes.
So please tell us who you are, what you do.
Okay. To the viewers, my name is Prof. Dorcas Ettang. I'm the acting director of the International Center of Nonviolence at the Durban University of Technology here in South Africa, and I'm also an associate professor in the center.
Okay. So we will. Our first topic will be conflict and resource control. But before we go in that, I would like to know what is your thoughts about the symposium. Why you attended?
Yes, I attended the symposium because it is a very relevant symposium. It is timely. It is important that academics, civil society, researchers engage with the African Union, its priorities, its focus areas as well. I've had the opportunity to attend all the symposiums. I've also been able to publish in some of the books that have emerged from these symposiums. And so it's very relevant. It brings across people from the continent to really engage on various thematic issues. And we can see it in the evidence of the publications, the outcomes that are coming from it.
So, Professor, much of African instability is driven by competition over resources. From your experience in peace building, how can the continent break this cycle and ensure that resources wealth attributed to peace rather than conflict?
Yes, I think it's important to have a space for dialogue and engagement from different levels of society. So at the grassroots community level, with local government leadership, with national governments as well, there needs to be dialogue on what the challenges are with regards to resources and how to ensure that the resources benefit everyone. I think it's important that communities own their resources. They are part of the conversations on how these resources are used. It should not be a government-only conversation. It should not be a multinational corporation-only conversation. It has to include the communities to determine what the needs are. And I think what we see on the continent is many players or actors try to bring division within communities, competition between ethnic groups, so that they're able to access those resources. Because when communities are divided, then you can take advantage of them. So there needs to be dialogue, information sharing, exchange of ideas, and putting communities at the forefront.
Okay, so we're speaking about the symposium, and I would like us to touch on preparation and healing historical trauma. So the symposium link reparation with Africans' pursuit of justice and sovereignty. In your view, can reparation also serve as a philosophical or social healing process for communities affected by both historical and modern forms of exploitation?
Yes, absolutely. Reparations for me is not just financial. Reparations involves acknowledging the wrong that has been committed against victims, against people. It also involves developing these areas and trying to empower and build the capacities of people who have been wronged. And so in this case, it is important that now and even from the past that there is an acknowledgement from colonial entities, from even African governments, because they have also contributed to this problem of exclusion and putting groups at a disadvantage. And so can governments take ownership? Can they apologize for their errors? And I think we don't see that often where governments acknowledge their mistakes. It is always shifting blame. It's not about taking responsibility. So acknowledging the wrong is absolutely critical for reparations, and then ensuring that people are capacitated. Is it through employment? Is it through alleviation of poverty? Is it through infrastructural development? All of these things can support and assist people to heal from the past instead of remaining in that state of victimhood.
Okay. So moving to the building of non-violent system, because I believe that this is what you believe in. Your work at the International Center of Nonviolence emphasize in dialogue and reconciliation. So, what practical steps should African institutions and government take to embed nonviolence as a policy approach in conflict prevention and governance?
Yes. I think the first thing is we need to shift the conversation to nonviolence. The focus of the conversation at many levels, be it even in media, even in political spaces, even in communities, is violence. You know, how to use violence, there's criminality, and so on. And so we need to begin to have those conversations about how do we build a nonviolent society? How do we change our views? How do we build non-violent approaches to conflict? Because conflict is normal. It's part of human relationships. But the goal with non-violence is violence is never an option. There are other ways we can resolve conflict. And I think there needs to be conversations on how do we practice non-violence. And there are many strategies to do so. There's research on nonviolent approaches that have been used across the world and even in Africa's history, where people did not resort to violence, but were able to use dialogue, were able to use conversation, were able to use active citizenry, all in ways to push forward the agenda. So too much focus on violence, we need to shift that completely to how nonviolence can be achieved. Even in our use of violence, we see that when citizens protest, there's usually a violent response. While protesting should be part of, active citizenship, people should be able to come out and speak when they're unhappy and so on. So why should the response, or why is the response violence? We need to now completely change our way of engagement to say, look, let's talk about alternatives. And there are alternatives, and there are solutions to the problems that we face. It doesn't need a gun or weapons. And even now with violence, it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's financial. We have the whole incidents of sexual and gender-based violence. So we need to bring discourses on nonviolence into all those conversations.
So I will take it from the people and the public. Some will say how to come out of this violence when the West, who colonized us, did use this violence to achieve their goal. So why do we preach violence when they don't use the same language?
Yeah. And I think this is where we need to redefine for us as Africa, how do we want to engage? We've seen what war can do to the continent. We've seen what violence can do to individuals, to communities, to governments. We've seen the civil wars across the continent. And so there's a need to really deal with that. We can't continue being in a cycle of violence and conflict, and with terrorism now and maritime insecurity. And so there needs to be a conversation on how do we, acknowledge these threats and these issues, but find ways to prevent their escalation, find ways to deal with their spread. And I think education is very powerful. Africa, in many ways, economically, politically, socially, we need to redefine ourselves. We need to redefine our focus and talk about how to build a more safe, non-violent continent. And there's research on various ways to do so.
Okay. So to close, let's approach the role of a woman and youth in a peaceful building. So we know that women and youth are often the first victim, as you say before, of conflict, but the last to be involved in peace process. So how can the African Union and national government better include those groups in crafting sustainable solution for peace and reparative justice?
Yes. I think it's very important that even though the AU has member states, it's important that the AU engages with the grassroots and with the communities. And so I think the role of special envoys are very critical and very important because special envoys focus on a specific issue area. We have a special envoy on youth, we have a special envoy on women, peace, and security. And so these individuals go down to the grassroots. They engage with women, they engage with youth, they engage with communities and take that information back to the African Union. Perhaps even member states don't know some of the information coming from the ground. And so special envoys should engage with communities. The African Union Commission, the African Union's agencies have to engage with the grassroots. Go and get that information from there. Another way to do that is to increase interaction between women, youth, and the African Union and member states. And I know the former special envoy for women, peace, and security actually introduced sessions where they bring young girls, victims from the ground, to the African Union to speak to heads of states in open sessions and closed sessions where they share their experiences and the realities that they face on the ground. So I think it's very critical that there is a connection between women and youth and the African Union and member states. They should be included in its initiatives, its activities, its programs. There should be constant engagement. I even argue that that should be the starting point. If it's to decide on a new policy or a new intervention, let's engage them right from the beginning.
Thank you for your time, and I hope that we see you next year for the next edition, or maybe having you in one of our program for a special program regarding this matter.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Professor.
much.
Bye-bye.